A lot of people are asking, why are the millennials leaving the church? Well, in this video, we're going to tell you exactly some reasons why millennials no longer are interested in church. Yeah, I said it. No, millennials are no longer interested in church anymore. And why are they leaving? As you look through your pews in your church, and you might be a pastor, or you might just be a casual member, or you might even be like a parent or a grandparent, and you might always go and ask your child or your grandchild, why is it that you do not want to go to church? And I'll give a couple of reasons actually through this series that I'm going to do called Death to the Isms. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about racism. Yeah, I said it, racism. Unfortunately, in our church, we often see remnants of either explicit or even sometimes implicit racism. And so one of the things that we have to do is that we have to really look at the roots of some of the operations in church. One of the things that I know for sure is that even as late as 1990, there were stories that I've heard about churches not wanting black people to come into their buildings. And these are white churches I'm talking about. And the problem is that a lot of times, we want to worship, we being black people, just worship God in freedom. We want to be free to express ourselves. We want to be free to show our appreciation for God. But there has been a Eurocentric way that has kind of covered and hovered over the church on how to do things. And so maybe when we have to raise our hands, or maybe when we want to clap our hands, or maybe when we want to shout a praise to the Lord, it's often been looked down, it's often been shunned upon, because that's not the way that white people actually praise God in church. And so sometimes, the culture of African and African Americans and Caribbean Americans has been demonized because we are expressive people, and because we're expressive, sometimes it's been classified as ungodly, or it's been classified as, wicked. And so, there's this aura that over worship and how service should be, that only there's one way to worship God. And one of the things that I want to say is that millennials are just not buying that anymore. As a matter of fact, we're doing our research. As a matter of fact, we're looking deep into the roots of why do we do what we do. And we're starting to see that there's a lot of Eurocentric whitewashing that's happening in the way that we worship God. And so people want to go back to the ways where they can connect directly to God unapologetically and without being judged for the way that they want to express their love for God. Also, in our institutions, unfortunately, we have people that do not show love and do not show sensitivity to some of the issues that minorities are going through. As a matter of fact, you might see a lot of Christians go on their crusades to talk against people who get abortions, or talk against people who have other things going on in their lives. And basically what I'm just saying is that unless you are there walking on the ground with those people that are suffering, unless you're amongst the people who are the affected group, it's easy to point the finger and say, this is what you're not supposed to be doing. But it takes time to actually get to know somebody, to have some compassion about what they're going through. And unfortunately, because black people have faced a lot of racism, they faced a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of things that happen in society where we weren't able to accumulate generational wealth. We've been so far behind on obtaining wealth because of, the remnants of slavery and the Jim Crow laws, that we are not in the same position as a lot of white families. And because of that, it's hard to understand our plight. It's hard to understand the things that we have to go through. It's hard to understand how we cannot just exist. It seems like we always have to change our method, or we always have to adjust to other people's way of living, and we can't just be unapologetically, authentically ourselves. And so, why are millennials leaving the church? One of the reasons is the racism and the underlying racism that happens. And so I think we need to start having these conversations in order, if we want to make a change, if we want to see people come together, we need to be people of God that comes from all nations, all tribes, all tongues, and all peoples. Because that's what Revelation tells us, is that when we go and we meet in heaven, that there will be many different races, many different people, all shades, all colors, that will be there worshiping together. So if we're going to have that utopia in heaven where we all can have that unity and worship together, why is it so difficult for us to worship together in many different cultures and many different ways here on earth? And so this is my challenge, to the white churches. Are you willing to have people of color come in and worship God authentically, or do you want them to conform to your style of worship? Are you able to sit under a black pastor, or as soon as the pastor comes, you leave and you start another church? These are the questions we have to ask if we want to get to the root of why people are leaving. And so I'm glad that you joined us on this episode of Religion and Politics. To hear more on this series, Death to the Isms, go ahead and click that link that's up here on the top of your screen to learn more about the second reason why millennials are leaving the church, which is ageism. We'll see you soon.
No justice, no